Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcoin Guides, bringing you my run of BioShock Wrench-Only Survivor, no Vita-Chambers, difficulty, run. That's so weird, I might just say run at the end, I don't know. This is Pavilion. I forgot to say welcome to Rapture in the last episode, and I dearly apologize for that, but I don't really feel like going back and re-commentating the first level, just for the sake of getting out the name of it. So, you can see the name at the titles. I made an oopsie, and, you know, it's okay. Hardcoring is not the most professional thing, so... Pavilion. This is where things are going to start getting a little bit more interesting, and even just a tad bit more easier for you to get through. I know this is still early game, and I know I said that early game is kind of tough. It is. Early game is tough until at least after Smuggler's Hideout. After that, you're pretty much in, like, mid-game at that point. And early game is, like, not extremely impossible. It's just a little bit harder to get through. And luckily for us, Pavilion provides us with, you know, of course, Wrench Jockey, our first major wrench tonic that we're going to be using. So, of course, when it comes to tonics and trying to synergize your tonics, you should always go for, like, a wrench build. That's kind of the idea, which is... I mean, that sounds pretty obvious, but... I believe I said it before. Yeah, I said, you know, Armored Shell, Wrench Jockey, Sport Boost, Bloodlust especially. That's a big one. You know, you're definitely gonna need those. And then for this first part right here, oh yeah, I'm gonna actually be cutting out all the hacking stuff. We don't need to see that; it's still kind of fluffy. So this first little area, I decided to keep the security bot. Granted, I could make the game much more harder by having no camera and by having, you know, no bots to help, but you know, realistically speaking, if you really want to have a much easier time dealing with most of this, you know, having a security bot to help you out is nice. Granted, you could just avoid these guys and, like, maybe, you know, take them to, like, a single room that, you know, like an isolated area to try to take them out that way, or just wait until later, or just go far enough into the level where they pretty much just give up trying to chase you, and then you're pretty much good. But then that's also another problem where, like, now you're going to run into more enemies and, you know, what have you. Granted, killing at this point in time, like, the only thing that we're getting out of killing splicers is mainly just money. That's the main thing that I'm trying to get from killing them. You can avoid them if you want to. If you're having trouble, then, you know, I would recommend running away then, if that's the case. There's no harm in running away from them. At all, really. Granted, yeah, you lose out on money, but especially for Pavilion, avoiding fights isn't really a bad idea, because granted, most of that money is just going to go to, like, Eve Hypos and medkits at this point anyway, so realistically speaking, you could avoid most of that problem of having to spend the money on the medkits to just be able to, well, one, you can find them later, but, like, you know, just get by without having to fight the enemies, I guess. My words aren't really coming to me. I'm pretty bad at this run stuff, I guess. For those that are curious, this will be a 14 video playlist guide run, so yeah. Just one of the other... I swear, I have no idea what I'm trying to say anymore, because, like, before I did this run, or before I did this video specifically, I ended up talking about stuff that I wanted to talk about, and I think because I talked about it, I feel like I've already talked about it, and now I don't really know what to talk about now because we already screwed it up. Something I do end up screwing up, actually, is the Hacker's Delight that appears over there. So you burn the corpse, you get the tonic, there you go. But I missed it, and I eventually went back down here to grab it, and then I turned on the furnace again. I had to wait another few seconds for it to pop back out, so... Oops, that's just what happens. And then, of course, you know, you come in here, and you have your nice little bit of, you know, fire, incinerate. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that oil definitely does help. It definitely does help with creating their HP, because, like, a regular incinerate attack is enough to eventually kill them, but, like, I feel like with the oil being spread, you know, especially with groups, of course, they're gonna burn. Funny enough, I had the gin over here burning for some strange reason. But yeah, Maybe it's just my psychosis, but I believe that it's possible the oil and fire may do more damage, or may just kill them quicker. It just seems like it does. But, yeah. I know this is going to sound like blasphemy, but as somebody who is an avid BioShock player, I actually don't know if that is technically true or not. I've never really experimented too much, unfortunately, because I'm very dumb. But I do play BioShock. You know, I used to play like every year, but now I just kind of haven't played in a while. I don't even remember the last time I played, to be honest with you. But, you know, it's nice to be able to just do another run, just for the heck of it. And I kind of wanted to give something on Hardcorean to be watched, I guess. I mean, I did just get done doing Cultic, but, you know, maybe people want to see BioShock as well, so there's that. Or, you know, maybe people want to see me do BioShock again, because, like, we haven't had any new BioShock in years. Like, yeah, we're getting that new Judas game, but that's not technically BioShock. It's somewhat kind of like BioShock, but realistically speaking, it's not exactly named BioShock. And will I be getting that game? Maybe. There's a high chance of a big maybe. You know, usually I like to avoid the idea of like, well, you like said game, and now this other game's coming out, and it's just like that said game that you like. You know, you're bound to get it, aren't you? And it's like, typically I try to avoid that, because like sometimes like those games that try to be like something I like end up just not being exactly what I like. So, you know, I try to avoid that if necessary, but I don't know. This game looks to be relatively promising, you know, and who knows? Maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad. I have no idea. That's in the future, and right now we're doing BioShock, so yeah. The fun thing about a wrench-only run, you know, with plasmids and camera and all that other fun stuff, like being allowed to use everything else except for your guns, is actually a relatively fun and fine run. As in, like, it's not something I would consider the utmost difficult. And even if you're afraid of Fontaine, don't be, because he's actually really, really bad in this. And I'm starting to chalk it up to the fact that maybe the remastered version is just worse than I thought it was. Because like going through this playthrough, I've noticed a lot of things that were just much different than when I originally played it. I mean, granted, this game has always been kind of rough. As polished as it does seem, it does have a lot of rough edges to it too. So, but I usually just chalk that up to like, that's just kind of a little bit of a funny, you know, that's a little haha goof type thing. So, and nowadays, you know, playing the remastered, just it doesn't feel right anymore. I mean, now I'm really starting to see the cracks. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. Granted, I would play the original one on PC, but it doesn't have survivor mode. That wasn't until the remastered PC version that we got it. Granted, in the original console versions of this game, you know, the PS3 and Xbox 360 and what have you, they did have survivor mode. At least I believe Xbox 360 did. I could be wrong. I don't know that much about the Xbox 360 version, to be honest with you. And I'm, you know, saddened that I may have appalled you by saying that. But I only, you know, grew up with the PS3 version, so there's that. And that one had survivor mode, and I loved it. And it was fun. And no Vita-Chambers, the best way to deal with no Vita-Chambers is just save. The whole no Vita-Chamber thing just makes it to where, you know, once you die, you can't basically respawn. And granted, if you do respawn, the enemies do respawn with their health. So, it doesn't really amount to much besides just, like, not having to go back to the main menu. So save often, especially if you're worried about, like, an upcoming fight. Just save often. That's my best tip for no Vita-Chambers. It's just save before a Big Daddy fight. Save before a big fight that you're afraid of, that you know for sure is coming. Because the thing with this game is knowing. Knowledge is relatively powerful in a game like this. Because knowing, like, you know, which specific enemy is going to show up, knowing where the turrets are going to show up, and all that other fun stuff, you know, you can take advantage of that situation and churn it on its ass. Now, speaking of the remastered version being shit, this is something I want to address. You're going to notice that I'm going to miss a lot of my plasmid shots. And I'm going to blame the game for this one. And that sounds horrible, and, you know, maybe it's me. Maybe it really is me. But I don't really feel like it is this time. I genuinely feel like it's the game. For those that may know, whose fault it is for sure, then, you know, let me know, of course. But I genuinely believe that the remastered version of this, for some reason, just seems to make it harder to be able to shoot your stuff, you know, your plasmids. It just, something just seems off. Also, every playthrough I end up just, you know, burning both the ice to get through both doors. You only really need to burn just the one mandatory to get through here, because there's no gene swap bank, so, you know, you're kind of screwed if you switch out, you know, something you don't want to switch out. So make sure, if you're going to switch anything out, I would recommend switching out Incinerate after you've done all the, you know, mandatory / optional things. Also, I do go get that diary later, if anybody was curious. I did miss it. My brain just didn't register. It didn't... Look, it's been a while, you know, so forgive me. My BioShock days are quite numbered, I guess you could say. But it's fine. You know, we ended up doing this run, so it's no biggie. Alright. Get up here. Just, you know, climb through the glass. Stand behind the pillar. Wait for the, you know, the turret to stop shooting. Hack him if you want. You don't need to. But it will save you in the long run of having to deal with his ass. Because he will be shooting through the window. And, you know, when you get telekinesis to eventually go through there. Yeah. I also opened the door just in the off chance that maybe I need to go back in that room for something. Because I think I remember, like, going through there and, you know, thinking, like, why is the door not open? Why, you know, why didn't I open the door? That might have been a previous one of this. Also, for this spot right here, if you want to avoid the doctor and get away from him, you know, the splicer, you could just not look at him and just jump away. Also, this is the fun thing of BioShock. I don't blame the remastered version for this. I blame BioShock and its poor physics. That's just been a thing that BioShock has pretty much always had, just fucking terrible physics half the time. So, yeah, oh, don't get me wrong, I love this game dear to death. I'm telling you pretty much how it is. I'm relatively critical of this game because I love it so much. And, you know, I know it's a thing that's kind of a cliche that people say all the time, but, like, it's my favorite game, so, you know, I think it's okay for me to say that, like, hey, you know, this is shit. Also, I avoid the buckshot, you know, shotgun fight. If you pick up the shotgun, you initiate the fight. That's pretty much the problem. I think right there, I think my plan was maybe bringing the propane to go fight the Big Daddy later. I think that might have been the plan. I don't remember. It's been a while. But in terms of plans, I could tell you about real fast. My plan originally was like, oh, I can take down the first Big Daddy. That shouldn't be too hard. You know, it's just a bouncer. It shouldn't be that hard. My original plan was, you know, go grab maybe like Armored Shell and then go grab Enraged. You know, especially if you harvest, you should be able to have enough Atom for both. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you know, it should be 80 for Enrage, and then it should be 60 to 80 for Armored Shell. And I think it's maybe 80. I think it's 80. Because even health upgrades are 80. So, and you get 160 if you harvest. Which is why I harvest in the beginning. Like, yes, you know, if you rescue, you feel better about yourself. But at the same time, you know, the other benefit of rescuing is you eventually get like Hypnotized Big Daddy tonic, and you get extra tonics for fun. Hypnotized Big Daddy Plasmid. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm a little dumb today. So yeah, you can get your hands on that, but yeah, harvesting. The reason why I do it is because I want to get the Atom as fast as possible. So I want to get that 160 now. I don't want to have to wait for later. And, you know, you can do a rescue on your own, but for me, personally, I just went for a harvest. It doesn't really matter because I'm not going to fight the Big Daddy in this first fight anyway. I was doing that just in the off chance that maybe I'm going to need it, so I just went for harvesting just to make my time a little bit easier. For those that are wondering, you don't get that much Atom for harvesting in comparison to, like, rescuing. In terms of, like, overall, like, at end game, if you've killed off every Big Daddy and rescued and harvested every little sister, I say kill every Big Daddy, you know what I mean. If you've dealt with every sister, regardless of harvesting or rescuing, you only have like a 10% extra amount of Atom if you harvest. That's it. It's not a game changer. It really isn't. Especially with New Game Plus. If you're wanting to get everything, you can just do New Game Plus, which I never do, actually. I never really bother with a New Game Plus run. It just feels wrong. Also, fun fact, you can't actually jump over that fence. If you try hard enough and believe hard enough, you can. I've done it. Be careful though, because sometimes the game will break. Either it might crash completely, or Steinman might crash, which is just a problem with BioShock in general. Like I said, this game has its shit, and it's not just the remaster version that does it. Typically, a lot of the time, you know, even both versions do it, especially when you get to the proving ground and you're dealing with the little sisters and you're having to take them across the way, you know, to stab those corpses and stuff. Sometimes they get stuck, and that's not just a remastered thing. That's just fucking BioShock in general. Because, let's be honest, this game is great. You know, I love it. It's a fun game. It's a good shooter. It has a lot of fun components. But, at the end of the day, it's not as polished as I would want it to be. Alright, anyway, so here's our first boss fight, and pretty much our only really true boss fight besides Atlas. I mean, to be fair, we barely get anything. He's just a splicer, like a leadhead splicer, but way more tanky. So, in all technicality, yeah, this is a boss fight. Now, granted, I guess you could also consider Tanner Cohen a boss fight. I'd throw that in there as one, yeah. Why not? Atlas Ryan isn't, so don't pretend like he is. If you need, you know, medkits or whatever, they're down there. You can hack the safe. You get like 3 of them. You can break the healing machines, whatever you got. And if you want to keep some propane for later, which is what I'm doing right now, go ahead. Also, I did hack the turret for the sake of taking out these thugs. I didn't want to deal with them. I just want to, just to get through, so. Just let my turrets do all the work, pretty much. Also, see how Wrench Jockey just does so much more damage? Just in general. Now, if you had Machine Buster on, you definitely be able to do more damage to just regular machines like turrets and bots and stuff, but I think, personally, that Wrench Jockey is the better option for my situations. Like, you get just enough damage on turrets, and half the time, you don't really need to blow up a turret anyway, unless you really want to. So, I always just go for the hacking, just to be on the safe side. That way I don't get caught off guard or hit from behind. And yeah, there you go. We got our first harvest, so I'm going to show you what I buy, and off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, my idea was to use Enrage, and let's just say that fell through. I think it's possible to use Enrage on like other enemies to get them to group up and then eventually go fight the Big Daddy, but leading them around is a pain in the ass, and it's just more trouble than it's worth, basically. So, I don't really bother with it. I think I end up getting, I don't think I get Armored Shell until like way later, I think. Yeah, I think I get it like way later. But we'll see. We'll see when I get it. Maybe I do get Enraged right now. Well, I get Health Upgrade. And I get both Health and Eve. Okay. Okay. That's not necessarily like a dumb decision, really. But Health and Eve is nice. Having that extra health does make you just a tad bit more tanky to survive a lot of the onslaught. Now, do be careful about Static Discharge, though, because if you end up using it and you accidentally hit a Big Daddy, you're going to turn him against you, and you're going to have to run through the whole level with him on your ass. So, be very careful. And try not to oversave on your autosaves for the level, just in case you accidentally hit a Big Daddy and you piss him off. Because that's going to be something you don't want to fight with, unless you want to ruin your run, or whatever, then fine. Even on, like, Survivor No Vita-Chambers, fighting the first Big Daddy is still relatively a challenge in itself. Like, yeah, you'll have Electric Buck, but it's still not enough. Granted, I mean, if you used Enrage to, enrage a Nitro Splicer and have him chase back to fight the Big Daddy, that could work too, but that Enrage doesn't last very long enough to get him. You probably could get him over there, but, like, even then still, like, it's not really worth it, I feel. There is a Nitro in there that you could leave alive in the area that the Big Daddy's in, but still, it's more trouble than it's worth. But if you want to try it, go ahead. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. So, take care, everybody.